Hi guys! I have another really wonderful story about our friend Jesus. This time, we're talking about a story that happened in Luke chapter 4, but Jesus is going to tell us a story that happened way back in the Old Testament in 2 Kings chapter 5. Well, you know what? Jesus was at the synagogue teaching in the town of Nazareth. He lived there when he was a boy, but now he was all grown up. Well, one day he stood up in the synagogue in front of all the people. He unrolled the scroll to read to them, and they opened up their ears and they listened because they knew that this important teacher had something really cool to teach them. He said, "Guess what, everyone? God has chosen me to be the good news to the poor." Remember, he was the Word. He was the Word that became flesh and lived among us. God chose me to become good news to the poor, to people who are sad and oppressed, people who are hurt and broken, people who have lived lives of shame. I have come to overcome sin and death. I will break all of the chains of sin and darkness, and I will cover them with my love. Well, this is the story that Jesus told to illustrate the fact that he had come to do all of these wonderful things for humanity. And it went like this. Here's what he said. Once upon a time, there was a man named Naaman. Naaman was very, very powerful. He was a commander in the Syrian army, and he had lots of people that served underneath him. He had money and wealth and fame and power, and he was an all-around important kind of guy. Well, he had a slave girl who was also his wife, and she was not Syrian like he was. She was from a different land. She was from the same area that Jesus was from, and that's called Israel. The people of Israel were God's chosen people. She knew the Lord. Well, you know what's crazy about Naaman is he was powerful, but he had all kinds of spots all over him. He had a really, really terrible skin disease, and it was called leprosy. You see, when a leper came by, nobody could touch him. He was considered unclean. The people would shout, "Unclean, unclean." And this person had to really be all by themselves. Not only was it very painful, but it was very, very lonely. Well, Naaman's little wife said, "Oh, it hurts me so much to see him in pain. I wish that he would go see a man that I know in Israel, a man who is a prophet of God. I know that God can heal him." Well, you know what? Naaman, being as important as he was, he went to his own king, the king of Syria, and the king of Syria said, "Absolutely, go away to this foreign land and maybe they will heal you. You are very important to me and I want you well." So Naaman went to Israel, and he delivered a letter from his own king to the king of Israel, and he said, "I want you to heal me." The king of Israel said, "What? Who am I? I am not God that I can heal you. I'm sorry, but I cannot heal you." So Naaman went away very sad. But you know what? God made sure that a very special man overheard this exchange. This man was a prophet named Elisha. Do you know what a prophet does? A prophet hears from God and tells all the people what God said. Well, this prophet also knew that God could heal Naaman. He listened to what God said. He said, "Naaman, there's nothing important for you to do. I know you're an important man, but God wants you to be humble. He also wants you to be well. So if you're going to be well, all you have to do is go wash in the Jordan River." And then Naaman went away. What? I shouldn't have to wash in the Jordan. In fact, Naaman even said he didn't just have to wash one time, he had to bathe himself 7 times in the Jordan River. Naaman said, I am far too important to wash myself in such a silly river. In fact, all of the rivers where I'm from in Syria are far better. He was angry at the simplicity of what God was asking him to do. God asked him to be humble and do things God's way, not his own way. He was looking for a complex way to be healed, but God's way of healing is very simple. Well, eventually he got wise and he decided to follow Naaman's advice from God. He went and washed himself in the Jordan River 7 times. And when he came up, he was all clean. He was healed of his leprous spots. And he said, I will worship God only. This is the story that Jesus told to all of the people in the synagogue that day. He told other stories as well, but this story made the people furious. Do you know why they were so mad? They were so mad because Naaman was not a Hebrew like they were. Naaman was a Syrian man. But Elisha, the prophet, chose to heal Naaman. What? That's crazy. Do you remember all the people who were chosen by God were called Israelites? They were from Israel and they knew God and they worshiped him. But Naaman didn't know God. He didn't worship him. That's why these men who heard this story were upset at Jesus again. They did not want him telling stories about other people getting God's love. But don't forget, Jesus didn't come to heal the healthy people. He came to heal people who were sick and hurting with his love.